The way I understand human security is that it's freedom from want, freedom from fear, and freedom from hazard impact.
If we have human security compromised by the loss of those things, or any one of those things, such as water, then there's an immediate change in the status, the security status of an individual or a community or a country.
There is going to be a conflict because of water. There's no doubt about that. If water becomes as crucial as the oil is. But people should try and mitigate such events somehow. They should have a way, a strategy of how to stop that.
And the adaptation part is absolutely critical. If we don't get sufficient levels of finance in the global deal for adaptation, it will be impossible to respond to some of the water stresses and multiple other climate stresses that are going to develop.
I think we cannot continue with business as usual. What this calls for is dialogue that brings the policymakers, the farmers, to the center of the problem.
The simple truth is, getting back to my earlier statement, we cannot say what the problems are going to be because we can't solve tomorrow's problems with today's science based on yesterday's experiences. We are simply at the edge of that paradigm, and this is the big challenge that climate change presents us.
The research that's been done by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has told us that 2 degrees of global average temperature rise above pre-industrial levels is a critical threshold, above which the impacts of climate change become so much more severe.
With a 2-degree increase in air temperature, we will see a corresponding increase in water temperature. That will speed up biological processes, and if there are nutrients in there from waste products, we will see a deterioration in water quality and an increased incidence of blooms of toxic or potentially toxic cyanobacteria, blue-green algae. That will increase costs for humans and increase risks to health for humans and aquatic ecosystems.
So if you go through 1 or 2 degrees of temperature change, your evaporative losses are substantial. Now that poses the question, can we solve tomorrow's problem with today's science based on yesterday's experience?
As we feel the pinch of climate change, we need to look at our water resources in a very, very critical way to ask ourselves, how do we manage this resource? How do we tame it? How do we plan for times where we expect it but it doesn't come?
Is climate change related to security? I've got absolutely no question of doubt it's related to security.
Irrespective of where you are in the world, nations that face those challenges are just the sort of nations which could find that climate change could be the catalyst for potential instability and conflict.
Climate change then is telling us, wake up and do something about it.
If we do not know what the consequences of our actions are, should we continue doing what we're doing with impunity? Or should we apply what is known as the precautionary principle? And the precautionary principle tells us that in the absence of hard data, in the absence of high levels of certainty, we must assume the worst could happen and plan accordingly. Climate change is going to redefine relationships. Relationships between people, relationships between governments, relationship between different classes of society or different aspects, different economic groupings, industry, agriculture, etc. It's going to redefine those relationships. What are we doing as a people? to mobilize the kind of thinking that we need.
Let's invest in a decision that will allow the African farmer to be at par with the international farmers who are respected for feeding their countries.
And if we don't get that equation right, there's going to continue to be an insensitivity about what we do to this environment that ultimately is going to damage one of the most exquisite resources that we have.
We need to support each other, and we shall win. Thank you.